it's this weird, crazy power to take your clothes off in front of a bunch of people, because it's like, it's the dream that everybody jokes about. It's like, oh, I was presenting in front of my class in my underwear. But we are actually
You're like,
doing
that's my Thursday.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and welcome to Cool Friends. This is a series where I sit down with the amazingly talented people I know to talk about what they're doing, how they got there, and any advice I have to share. So today, I'm with my good friend Hayley. You are a director, a filmmaker, a burlesque performer, and I also found out a jewelry maker. So are you like the final boss, cool friend?
If you say so, I'll take it.
Amazing. So how did you get into burlesque?
When I was editing my feature film, my editor, who lives in New York, when I was going out to see her, I got a tattoo while I was out there, and the tattoo artist said that I'd really like this place called the Slipper Room, which is a burlesque club in New York. They have shows from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single night, and I went and I fell in love with it, and I just kept going there and drinking too much and staying too late, and eventually came back to Los Angeles and started looking for classes. Took a bunch of classes, kittened a bunch. And
what is kittening?
Kittening is essentially picking up all the clothes and running, grabbing drinks and anything else they need. It's kind of like being a stagehand, but it could be in a bar.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How do you make the jump from like, I'm doing this for fun, I'm taking classes, to like, I want to start putting myself out there and auditioning and performing?
I wouldn't have called myself a performer in my adult life. Before that, I danced as a child, but yeah, I think the leap was because I think a lot of people take dance class recreationally, but I don't know, it was just a pull. It was a pull, and I finally did my first performance with a production that I was kittening for, and they were like, well, we can't pay you, but if you want to just do your first act, you can. And I immediately broke my foot during that act.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So took a few months off and then came back.
You're like, I still love this enough to get back on the burlesque horse.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a journey.
What kind of dance did you do as a kid? Do you have any of those like awkward dance photos from growing up?
I definitely have awkward dance photos. I did ballet, I did jazz. My parents tried to put me in tap and found out I had sensory issues when I cried. It was too loud for me. And I ran away. But that was, yeah, I have a lot of awkward dance photos for sure. Nothing like crazy competitive. It was just like a tiny town in North Carolina. So I just went to the one dance studio that we had, and yeah.
I did ballet as a kid, and I remember I was always like, you had to like line up on your number, and I was always given number 0, and I still take it personally.
Weird.
I don't know what that means, but it stuck with me. Yeah. It's okay.
I mean, maybe it's better than 1.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. It's a positive spin.
Absolutely.
So you perform under the stage name Violence.
Yeah.
How did you craft this persona? Where did it come from? What inspired you?
I really wanted a name that had the sort of double entendre ethos of a drag name. I think that there are, respectfully, a lot of burlesque names that are like kitten, puss, scarlet, tease, like all of these things that they're fine. They're totally fine. But I think that the fun of something that felt more like a drag name drew me, so I kind of just like brainstormed a bunch of them, and I ended up sticking with that one, and I think it suits me way more now than it did then, because I think then I didn't quite understand who I was as a performer. I think there was also maybe a self-induced pressure that I felt like I needed to be marketable, and I needed to have the ability to do more classic things and look more classic, because that is so much of the burlesque that you see out there. But it's not all of it. It's just, I think that the most widely publicized things are like the Dita Von Tees, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't me. So I think I just kind of felt through that, and the more that I started trying to put myself into boxes, especially for show themes, the less I felt like myself. And I could tell eventually that the audience wasn't responding to me in the same way that they do when I dance to metal and I do my weird choreo and all of the other things that I love. So I think that took me maybe a year or 2 of performing before really kind of committing to the bit and starting to say no to things that didn't suit my character.
I love that. I mean, to me, you're someone who's always 100% who they are no matter what. But what is that process like of figuring out who you are and what you present to the world?
I do hear that sometimes. I feel like I get the like, you're very authentic, you're very genuine, you seem like you're very true to yourself. And I do feel like overall I am, but I feel like especially at this point, I think that I'm finding ways that I haven't been true to myself and trying to course correct. Could you ask that question one more time?
Yes. For sure. I guess like in the ways that I've known you, you've always been someone who shows up 100% themselves. You speak about things you don't like, things you do like, you wear whatever you want to wear. So how does that translate into crafting an onstage persona and kind of figuring out, testing, this is me, this isn't me, etc.?
Yeah, I think that a burlesque persona, especially, it's not that it's not you. I think it's the most glamorous, ridiculous version of yourself. And I think as somebody who's like also I'm not a very feminine person in my day-to-day life. Like I feel like that's the place where I get to bring out all of the sparkle and do my makeup in wild ways that I wouldn't generally feel comfortable going to the grocery store in. And there's nothing that makes me embarrassed about that. It's just that I feel like I'm a little more masculine on the day to day, a little more hard femme, and then that gets to be whatever I want it to be. And it's just like the fantasy of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah.
How can you speak to the power of saying no?
Yeah.
And what that's opened up for you?
Absolutely. I remember one specific show where I danced to a metal song. It was an 80s, 90s show. And I think it may have been the one that you went to. But I remember the audience just like, it didn't click. And I realized that this wasn't the audience for that. And so it wasn't giving me what I wanted from the audience either. So like, since you're in this constant give and take with the audience, their reactions determine how well you do. And how well you do determines their reaction. So it's just like this constant feedback loop. And since then, starting to say no has made me feel like I am in spaces where I'm appreciated and there's a great relationship with the audience and they have a realistic expectation of what I'm giving them, and we're able to have a more meaningful connection. And I think that that's been really freeing to me to realize that like my production, Batcave, people come to it because of that and not because of any weird mask or facade that me or any of the performers put on. Like everybody can show up as themselves and our audience appreciates that and they keep coming back for it. And it's humbling and very validating to see that, and to see that people want a space, because I feel like through burlesque, people specifically, I feel like women and queer people identify through performers and it makes them more confident. Like that's why people come to the shows. I'm getting into a whole other thing right now, but
go off. I love it.
Oh man. There was a BBC article that came out recently about like burlesque being empowering or degrading. And they kind of insulted Dita Von Teese, saying that like what she does is for the male gaze, without like realizing that a vast majority of burlesque audience is women. And having a background in marketing, when I'm marketing for our shows, like I know it's women and I know that it's queer people. And generally the only straight men that show up are with their girlfriends who brought them.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's a whole other tangent. It's just top of mind.
No, it's interesting. I remember watching this interview with Gwyneth Paltrow. Not to bring Gwyneth into this,
please,
but
bring
she
her
was
in.
speaking. Okay, she was speaking about when she was early on in her career and auditioning. She wouldn't be getting roles, and she would be mad and be like, "Ugh, I didn't get it. That was mine." And her mom said to her, like, "If you didn't get it, it wasn't for you."
Yeah.
And I think going back to what you said, like when you say no, when you know what isn't for you, it allows what is actually for you and the right audiences to come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm feeling that way about leaving advertising right now too. I feel like it's something that I never meant to do. I stumbled into it. I did it for 7 years. And now I'm on the other side of it. I'm like, how did I do that for so long? That wasn't me. I never had any fun. Everything felt ridiculous constantly. And I feel like the second I was like, I'm not going to go back to this. I'm going to stop applying for 20 jobs a day after the layoff. Everything is just kind of, I don't know, falling in place.
Let's talk about that though, because I think so many people either have been laid off or kind of debating, like, do I make this leap into something that's more entrepreneurial, more creative? Like, what is that fear like? What is that process like? Or how's it been for you?
Yeah, I think the fear, for me at least, like the allure of a stable job with insurance and a paycheck coming in, like I grew up modestly, and so like the idea of having stability, I was like, I have to do that. Like I can't, like freelancing terrified me. I was like, I can't go back. I can't be poor again. And I think that was my main fear and like why I stayed in advertising. I didn't go to school for that. I've been in conservatory for years before that, for film and for visual arts. And so I think also growing up in a small town and being the weird kid and doing art all your life, everybody's telling you that you can never make money off of that. And I think that it's wrong, and I think that it's even more wrong today. And so I think that I've always been moonlighting. I've always been like doing my own film projects outside of work and like using my PTO to take shoot days and like doing burlesque at night and staying up until 2 and then getting up at 7 and going to do ad shit. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't want to die that way. I don't want to die doing that. I don't want to wake up in 50 years and say, oh, I've been doing this thing that I hate for my whole life so that I can pay all of my bills comfortably. And I'm a hustler. And I think that acknowledging that I'm going to be fine and acknowledging that like we're entering an era where a ton of people make their living off of their art because of social media and because of markets, like kind of drawing small business and markets to burlesque. Like there are places for those alternative communities now that there weren't 20 years ago. But like there are a ton of dark markets and oddities places and weird events and satanic drag shows. There's like so many places for weird people to show up and support each other by screaming or spending money. And it is such a farce, I think, that I feel like I've fallen for a very long time, that you can't make money doing art. So I've decided to start making and selling jewelry. Congrats. I'm very excited. And it's been really fun so far. It's like something that I've always been drawn to. My background's like in film and illustration. And I'm also like, oh great, I can draw again. And I can frame that and I can sell it. And I can do silversmithing and I can make jewelry that feeds my soul to make, and then I can sell it. And I think that the self-reliance of that has been very attractive to me. I've done markets before. I used to like sell upcycled, thrifted shit back in North Carolina. And like, I think that the farce is that you can't make money off of your art. So you have to feed into the corporate structure. And I think that it is a lie that we're told so that we support it.
Yeah, I think also one of the downsides of, like, yes, we're sold this idea that you need to have a job that provides a 401k and savings and you work 9 to 5 and it's safe and stable, but you also have to think about what are you trading off for that stability? Yeah. Because a lot of times if you're working that many hours, you don't have the energy to pour your energy into your creative pursuits. Yeah. You are drained or you have too much going on. And so I think, the more you can take your power back and start to really cultivate whatever it is you want to do. And if what you really want to do is work a corporate job, more power to you.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather die at this point.
Fair. So where, as a filmmaker, a jewelry artist, and a burlesque performer, looking at kind of the Venn diagram of your creative life, how do those all intersect for you?
Yeah, I think that, especially with a background in visual art, aesthetics have always been so important to me. And not just that, but the concept around it and making a strong vision, I think has been the thing that's carried through visual art, through filmmaking, and through burlesque and costuming and concept and storytelling and music. Like, I think that everything I've ever made has been about trying to communicate a feeling to someone. And I think that from storytelling in film and burlesque and in visual art and now jewelry, I want to focus on memorial jewelry and what I'm kind of calling familiar jewelry, because I think that like remembrance pieces are associated with death, rightly so. I get that, but I also think that like part of the romance of life is having those tactile things before something is gone, and the ability to like have a Victorian hair art piece of your hot fiance and then being across the country and like wearing it. Like that feels very romantic to me, and I think that, you know, life should be, but you know, having your snake's shed skin on a necklace also sounds very cool and personal. I don't know, I think having a vision that means something to someone that people remember, I think is kind of the through line that I feel is in everything that I make.
Can you make me something with my dog's fur?
Please.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
I remember reading something recently about how, I mean, there's this whole thing right now online where Gen Z is envious of millennials for many reasons. Yes.
Why?
We're no longer cringe. We're covetable.
That's crazy.
I know. How the tides change.
They have so much freedom though.
I don't know.
It took me so many years to figure this out. They're like 18 and they're like, nah, fuck corporate.
Yeah, I know. But one thing they've said is like, we, at least our generation and older, always had a deeper connection to the clothes and the things that we had in our house. You know, right now everything's fast fashion. Even the brands that we grew up with are just watered down and made with like more and more plastic.
Absolutely.
And so I think there's something really special in consciously cultivating the things that you keep in your body, especially when they're connected to someone. And even while you're performing, like that's still an energy exchange.
Absolutely.
Like being really conscious of the energy that you're wearing and keeping around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's also something that like when it comes to costuming and theming for different shows, that like eco idea of it, like I think, you know, it's so easy to get shit on Amazon and it's all horrible, but really like either making your own costumes or working with a costumer to like create a signature look that is going to last you for 10 years, that you keep putting time and effort and rhinestones into and have for the next 15 years, I think is so beautiful. And I think that with jewelry too, like creating heirloom pieces that you can give to your kids or your loved ones one day. There's romance in loving objects. And I think that I'm a very sentimental person. I wouldn't call myself materialistic, but I think that like so much of that material idea is fast fashion, but keeping something and loving something is how you have romance in your life and how you enjoy being alive, because it is so short. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I was going to ask, outside of performing, how do you keep your cup full? How do you find romance and joy and beauty in every day that you can bring into your performance?
Yeah, I think connecting with music that I really love. I've never wanted to be a DJ, but I've always wanted to force people to listen to my favorite songs. So this is a great opportunity for that. I love going to do things. I don't care if they're cheesy or silly. I love it. I love animals and movies, and I think that appreciating silence is a really refreshing piece of process to any art. And I think that I'm sure you hear this all the time in these interviews, but I feel like it's so easy to get swallowed up by digital content and by social media. And I am very guilty of that, because how else are you supposed to promote yourself for anything? But being able to take periods of time where you're just working on something silly, or like creating not for sake of product, but for process, I think keeps everything flowing, no matter what that is.
Can you speak to some of the topics that you've covered or are interested in when it comes to film?
Yeah. My feature is about a couple Appalachian kids who get in over their heads after a drug deal gone wrong. I think that the themes that I see in my art and like film at least in hindsight, I don't think I would necessarily clock it while I was making it. But what I see now is I see a lot of themes of loneliness. And I think that, you know, some of that could be an aspect of the digital age. You're like, I'm going to pause.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy to be lonely now. So, and I think that, you know, also processing trauma that we grew up with, it can be very lonely. I'm an only child. I feel like I didn't have anybody to talk to growing up. So I think that, like, when I look at a lot of my art, I still see that. And I think that being able to see it means I'm a little further away from it. But I think that, you know, maybe that's why I'm a performer. Yeah. I joke about my praise kink on the mic all the time. And I'm just like, my parents didn't pay enough attention to me, so now you have to. Which is a joke, but also it's kind of true.
Yeah, it's funny because it hits.
Yeah, I'm like standing on a stage where I have somehow convinced 100 people to come listen to me talk and introduce really cool performers. So I don't know, I think that art in that way, especially performance and like event producing, is kind of a way to create these communities that you never had. So I think that that's been incredibly important to me in my mental health. And it's so humbling and cool to see.
Can you tell me how your childhood and your roots impact your work?
I think that when it comes to filmmaking, especially, I'm more drawn to telling stories of Southern characters. And I think that part of living in a liberal metropolis, which I'm very, very happy to be in because I didn't have that growing up and it was such a conservative area, but I think that something that I hear with people that we work with in ad spaces and stuff is that they have this like monolithic view of the South being everything that's wrong with the country without realizing that there are so many people of color and queer people that live there and have lived there for so long, and that they're not the problem. And I think that the South is kind of unfairly punished for that. And I'm trying not to get political right now. How do I say this? I think all of the conservative politicians in the South should die. But I think that people forget who actually lives in the South and that they need the support of the rest of the country so that they can continue to exist safely, because a lot of them don't. So I think that when it comes to film, that's always been something that drew me. And I think that processing a lot of my own trauma with that, I guess, has been helpful to me, and maybe something that I'm like still working out now as a queer artist. But I think that if I were to kind of like pick apart things in burlesque and writing and film, I think that the like idea of trying to make something that mainstream culture would feel as alien, approachable and fun and understandable without castrating it, I think maybe is something that's very important to me. Maybe I got lost in the sauce there.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Get lost, swim around. No, I think kind of going back to performing and creativity.
Yeah.
One of the biggest fears I think creatives have in general is fear of being seen.
Yeah.
I myself struggle with that, putting ourselves out there, fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And I feel like burlesque is just turning the notch up on that to 11.
Absolutely.
How, do you struggle with those kind of feelings, and how, if you do?
I used to.
Yeah.
I used to. I think that when I started performing burlesque, I've had a ton of stage fright for so long, which is why I've been behind the camera and drawing things and then putting them on a board and walking away. And I feel like I've been set up for artistic critique for a long time. And also the meanest things that people say to you are just you existing as a person, And I think that, gosh, where do I go with this? I feel like I had a breast reduction when I was 21. So I spent so many of my underage years also just being sexualized by adults. So you have so much unwanted attention, it makes you want to hide. And I think that that's true for a lot of women. And I think that burlesque has presented an opportunity to take all of that power and harness it, and you control every piece of that. And people are intimidated by you. And it seems like I think that some people have this idea that like, I don't know, a bunch of crazy men are gonna like put their hands on you. But I can genuinely say that every space that I'm in is 50 people who would probably hit that person if they got near me. Gosh, there's so many like philosophical questions around this. I'm trying not to get into all of them. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Focusing this in. I've had a lot of stage fright all my life. And when I first started performing, I would go on autopilot and I would legitimately like black out for 4 minutes during my number and just be like, well, I'm gonna go on autopilot, like, let's see what I do. And it took me honestly about a year to get over that. And dance classes were so helpful because like I would go into autopilot for all the moves that I learned. And being able to break out of that gave me so much more control over my performance and how I was perceived. And it's this weird, crazy power to take your clothes off in front of a bunch of people, because it's like, it's the dream that everybody jokes about. It's like, oh, I was presenting in front of my class in my underwear. But we are actually
You're
doing
like, that's
that.
my Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that there's something that's so strong, because not only are you expressing a concept that you came up with, a costume that you put together with the body that you live in, but realizing how little people care has been so freeing. I think like being bent out of shape over my body, whether or not I'm 20 pounds heavier or lighter, wasted so much time in my life. And then realizing that like if I ate half a pizza before a performance and I'm bloated and I feel like absolute garbage, it doesn't affect how the audience enjoys that performance, because they're paying attention to it for my fucking personality and the fun that I'm able to bring to them and how they get to feel confident and empowered through me. That's what matters. It doesn't matter what I look like. Well, it does. Like, you know, like you're pulling together you're looking put together. You like have your concept, but like 10 pounds heavier, 10 pounds lighter, it doesn't matter. If you feel like you have a zit on your butt, nobody cares. Nobody's looking at that. I think that has been really freeing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially with like all of the body pressure that I think is just like exacerbated by being in Los Angeles. It's just realizing how little people actually care about that sort of thing, and realizing the presence that you have as a performer is, I think, incredibly powerful, and it's made me confident in so many more aspects of my life.
I think that goes back to like picking the rooms that you're in.
Yeah.
Because like you said, when you are in those spaces where you're supported, people are literally there to bask in your energy and do something that they themselves can't do, don't have the interest or balls to do.
Yeah.
And so they're really just to almost be like a voyeur and kind of soak that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to scrutinizing.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
it is funny how our brain always goes to the worst possible scenario when it's putting ourselves out there, instead of like, what if I'm adored? What if I'm appreciated?
Yeah.
What if I'm seen?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. What if people appreciate my bravery for doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do.
They do. Absolutely.
They
They
do.
respond to it really well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I noticed is your favorite color black?
No.
No,
No.
it's not.
My favorite color is a deep emerald green, and my favorite costume is that color.
Oh, I love.
And it's just Christmassy and beautiful.
That's amazing. I was going to ask, are you a Scorpio?
I'm a Scorpio moon.
Oh, okay. There it is. What's the rest of your big three?
I am a Capricorn sun, so it keeps me
Well, she's a
grounded.
business lady.
She is. She's a business
There's
lady.
that
She's a
production
hustler.
company coming in.
And then I'm an Aquarius rising.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Can't wait for you to get dragged in the comments for your big three.
Honestly, they can come at me. I don't give a fuck.
But that makes sense because you're a Capricorn, I'm a Cancer.
Great.
We're like yin and yang.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what is your current or maybe all-time favorite song to perform to? I know for me, like my favorite songs change over time.
Absolutely. Well, my costume my favorite costume, my green one. Oh, it's a cute dog.
It's cute dog.
Okay. My favorite costume, my green one, is I perform an act to Funeralopolis by Electric Wizard, which is like this doom metal song that just kind of like goes steadily like this into more and more chaos. But I think the contrast of such a beautiful costume with that chaotic piece of doom metal and then choreo that feels very off kilter. I love that so much. I love that song. I also love lip syncing Le Disco because it makes my queer little 12-year-old heart very happy. I don't know, I'd probably say those two.
Well, you were talking about growing up in the South and performing as a way to really connect with a younger version of you and make them proud. So I guess my question is, do you have any advice for that younger version of you or anything that might help her?
Yeah. And, you know, it's easier said than done, but caring less about what people think, especially my family. I think that being more willing to let go of what they thought of me, I think would have helped me more when I was younger. And it's still like a really hard thing to do, to like separate yourself from that criticism. But I think that like lip syncing Le Disco by Shiny Toy Guns is such a silly song that I feel like so many people our age know, and it's like sexy and it's kind of I don't know, irreverent. But I listened to that song so hardcore when I was in middle school, and one of my dad was a cop. Boo. But I say that to say he had a coworker who was a lesbian who gave him this hard drive of music, and he never listened to it, but I listened to all of it. And that woman's music taste singularly like set me off on this path, and it had all the Shiny Toy Guns shit, it had Led Zeppelin, like it had a bunch of 90s like kind of soft metal stuff on it. But like that was the only queer person that I knew growing up. And I rarely ever saw her, and she had such a profound impact on my life. And like lip syncing that song and being able to like take elements of like drag performance into burlesque makes me feel so confident. And it's like being able to take that unapologetic energy of like finally not caring what anybody thinks, and then being able to like upheave parts of your life and release the idea of what somebody thinks of you, because you can't control that. Like if my dad thinks I'm a failure, then he's gonna think I'm a failure whether or not I have a full-time job, or whether or not I produce burlesque events, or whether or not I'm queer and weird and tattooed. So I think that releasing that has taken me so long, and I wish I had done it earlier. And I probably couldn't have, but you know, I think that would be my best advice.
I think that's such a hard thing to learn, because a lot of the times we as women and creatives are taught to be more palatable and smaller.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I've really been grasping with recently is like, if someone wants you to be small, no amount of small is going to be small enough. Nothing will ever be okay. No, like whether it's in your size or your voice or your creative expression. So it's like, you're going to kill yourself trying to please someone. And at the end of the day, it won't matter.
And all of those things that they hate about you are the things that they hate about themselves. Like when I see my dad get so bent out of shape over seeing somebody who's tattooed or doesn't look like how he thinks they should look on TV, I'm like, you hate yourself. And I think that you can't control what anybody thinks of you, and it's just all internalized that they're targeting at somebody else. And that's not your fault, and it's not your fucking responsibility.
I also want to go back to something you said about having these older mentor figures who can help lead the way, or at least open the door for you to show you other possibilities. Because I think that's so important. In a similar vein, I remember I had a babysitter when I was a kid, and she would always come over and bring like her giant book of CDs, and we'd drive around in her RAV4, and she'd be like, this is this artist, this is this artist, you need to know them. How do you not know Limp Bizkit? How do you not know Smash Mouth, whatever? And it was like, oh my God, up until that point, I had a boombox with a one Beach Boys CD. And her influence completely changed how I thought about music and how I thought about culture. And so I think like we need those people who are radically themselves and also creating spaces intentionally or unintentionally for the next generation to learn and come through.
Just to piggyback off of that, my corporate speak, I think that's why social media is so important. It's easy to demonize it, and it's easy, like we do need breaks from it. But also, like, if we had social media on the scale that we have it now, and I was a kid, I was a weird kid in North Carolina, like seeing people like us exist and make art online and being like, oh, it is okay. It is gonna be okay. I can do that one day. I think like removing the barriers for that and showing how possible it is can be really affirming, and I think give people hope that don't necessarily have it.
Where, if people want to follow you, support you, where can they find you?
At Violence on Instagram. Batcave Burlesque is arguably much easier to find. Yeah.
Before we go, can you just quickly explain what all your tattoos mean?
No. I wish I could. Somebody asked me in a dressing room on Saturday, how many tattoos do I have? And I know it was a well-meaning question, but I'm like, how many? Like, I don't know. Like, what counts? Okay, would you say that like a giant dragon on my side counts as one tattoo if it was 8 sessions over the course of 3 years versus like, that's one tattoo? That doesn't seem fair.
I was talking about this with my friends the other day.
Yeah.
Because there's never a good answer to that question.
No.
Because either it's like, I got this tattoo because it was fun, I was in the moment, or it's like, am I really going to spill out my deepest trauma to a casual stranger?
Absolutely not. No.
Either way, you'll be dissatisfied.
No.
So don't ask.
No. I'm not going to explain witchcraft to my grandmother, you know? Can't do it.
Fair.
I don't want to hurt her.
Yeah. Grandma's been through enough.
Yeah, absolutely. She's put me through enough.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Well, okay. I started Cool Friends as a way to have these conversations, try and figure out what the hell I am doing, and really just try and get some clarity on my creative life in a way that didn't feel like cringy or forced or weird. And so my ask to everyone who comes on this segment is, will you introduce me to your coolest friend and help me expand my circle?
Yes. I got a few for you to choose from. Do you want me to talk to you about them right now, or do you want me to like, send them?
You can.
Gosh.
No pressure.
I'm fidgeting. Would you rather talk to more performance people or like people with weird jobs?
Either.
I have a friend who I've been doing a similar thing as I've been figuring out my life post layoff, and part of like committing to jewelry as a Capricorn has been asking all of my small business friends how they ended up doing what they're doing full time and how long it took them to financially stabilize themselves. Because I was just like, I'm gonna ask everybody I know who's doing this. And one of my friends lives in Burbank, and she she was one of our like brand partners for a show, which is another thing that advertising has helped me do in performance spaces. But she has her own like witchcraft supply company, and they've been doing it for 5 years, and that's how she makes all of her money. And she travels across the country to do markets, and really beautiful stuff. It's beautiful work. I don't know if you
that sounds amazing,
but I think it's an amazing thing that she's done.
Also, what was the general consensus about starting a business and being profitable?
Oh yeah.
What was the advice?
It was really surprising. I think that pretty much, aside from a few outliers, most of what I heard was that everyone reached a point where they were so rock bottom at their day jobs, and they were so unhappy that they quit and they've dove in head first, or they got laid off and they were just like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm going to dive head first into this thing that I wanted to do. Everybody told me that the minute they committed and spent all of their time trying to build this thing, it took them like 3 to 5 months to stabilize themselves and figure everything out. And I think that's also been really comforting.
I think that's such a good lesson, because so many people are half in.
Exactly.
They have an idea. Yeah. They're like, I'll write this later. I'll make this later. Yeah. Someone else is doing a better version, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But when you actually commit and say, this is what I'm going to do for my time, like you were saying, the things just kind of fall into place.
Yeah. I also am friends now with a brand called Discount Cemetery, who they're a couple from New Jersey. They both got laid off from a Verizon store or something, and they've now had this like horror clothing brand together for 12 years, and they have the coolest studio in their backyard, and they're just hustling all the time, and they seem so happy. And I think that was the first person who we ran into at a market, and I mentioned that I'd been laid off, and we barely knew each other at the time, but Spencer, he was just like, oh, this might be the best thing that ever happened to you. And at the time I was like, haha, no, what? Of course not.
Yeah.
And now that I'm like 3 months later, I'm like, you were right. You were right.
I totally agree.
Maybe you should talk to them.
Yeah.
They're
I
awesome.
think a layoff
Yeah.
or just a big upheaval in life,
Yeah.
a lot of times is a gift.
Yeah,
even though we don't want to see it like that.
We'll talk about that Saturn return. She's going out with a bang.
Yeah, for real. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in.